All right, welcome to again the Yuri and Ryan Peters podcast. I'm Ryan Peters.
And I'm Yuri Gore.
Thank you for joining us. Thanks, Mum. We might get 3 views today. What do you reckon?
That's it.
Let's hope
what
so.
song are we doing it today? We're in a rush.
You mean what
so
piece?
What piece?
We're doing Capricho Arabe. What do you think of it?
I liked it. It was
I
pretty
liked
groovy.
Yeah, I did too. One of my favourite guitar pieces. Who's it
Yeah.
by? Do you remember? Francisco Tarrega.
That's it.
There we go.
That's close.
So look, I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's probably one of my favourite. He's probably the favourite classical guitar composer for me.
Really? I actually hadn't heard of it until now.
He's really good. Of course he's good. That's a
You're talking about
that's a bit
Francisco over here.
that's a bit basic to say. Now the thing I like about him most of all is his melodies. He's got simple but nice melodies.
Well, it's interesting you say that
Yeah.
because one of the points that I have here is that key-wise, he didn't really do much.
You
And I have
don't
some
think?
reasoning about that. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you mean he didn't do much?
Right. So, for the most part, it's trying to be in A Phrygian dominant, right?
Oh, okay. So we're getting to dominant.
Now we're doing modes.
Okay.
Now I'll accept your modes.
No, I disagree.
I reckon it was because, and you know it was, because in every single bar, he's got that A. He keeps hammering in that A.
Let's have a look at my.
Every single bar until he
Sheet
actually
music?
moves to D, which is at the very... I'll put the music up, the same music that we use, so you guys can all
Yeah, it's from.
look along. So at the very bottom of that first page is when he goes back to D, he resolves at the start of the repeat, and until then, there is an A in every single bar from basically the top, as soon as it moves actually into it.
But
Before
D's
it moves
the
out of...
fifth of A.
Sorry?
D's the fifth of A. You got to have it in there to get a nice, pleasant sound. If you don't have the fifth in there,
Not necessarily. And,
look, I can see where you're coming from when it's got that little bit of modal Spanish flavour because he was
yeah.
Spanish, I'm pretty sure. I wonder if he was formally educated. You know who isn't? Eric Sarte.
We haven't actually fact-checked that one.
No.
He could be still lying.
We'll do an Eric Sarte piece for our 100th episode. But the way I look at it as it's got a lot of chromatic runs. I think we can agree on that. Can you?
There were some. I didn't think there was that many chromatic ones, actually. I only counted one. And I might... Oh, two, sorry. Yeah, so you've got one in what you've classified as a C section, which is fourth line of the second page.
So yeah. So I always thought when I played this, because I've studied it, I did it back in the HSC back 25 years ago, when I was still in high school. What was I going to say? I always
The chromatic lines.
I always looked at the piece to have an intro, an A, B, and C section. Do you agree with me?
Yeah,
And
I'll
there's
give it
like
that.
a little outro, kind of. It's a cute
Sure.
little outro, isn't it?
More like a coda sort of thing. It's not a coda, to clarify, but it sort of felt like one.
I didn't feel it.
I couldn't feel it.
My chakras mustn't have been lined up. But, oh yeah, that's how we will agree to see it. A, B, C, and then a top and a tail. And
Sure.
I always thought that, A was in D minor. That's how I saw it.
B minor.
D minor.
D minor. Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then,
And which minor scale are we talking about?
well, that's up for debate, isn't it?
I thought it was cool because he kind of does this thing which is a bit like a melodic minor,
Yeah.
which has the raised sixth and raised seventh on the way up,
Okay.
but is natural minor on the way down. So he doesn't have that raised sixth in most of the runs that he does, but most of the time when he's ascending, he's got that, C sharp, but when he's descending, he doesn't.
Well,
And
there's
that's definitely not every time.
Well, there's a tiny little bit of harmonic minor in there as well.
I thought it was mostly harmonic minor.
Okay, well, we'll go with that then. How about that?
Or we'll swap between the two.
Because if we look at the chord progression, the opening chord progression of A, which is, I'm pointing it to it right now, you can't see because this is a primitive form of entertainment, it's voice only. We have a D minor.
So he's talking about when it goes into common time at the end of that second line.
So we
First
go
page.
D minor, then we go, I class it as an F6.
Sure.
So it's like the third, almost like a substitute. Then we have an A over E, and then
An F6.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
That's just a D.
Okay, I'll agree with you.
The notes are D minor, that is. D,
Yep.
F, and A.
Okay, well I saw that with the, well you can
It's second inversion.
Yeah.
Which basically, if anyone knows anything about figured bass.
Ooh, comment if you know anything about figured bass. Mum, me and my mum and Mrs. Gore. But yeah, you could see it a few ways. I suppose it doesn't have the fifth in there, but if you want to look at
It
that,
does have the fifth in there.
of an F.
Oh, the F.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
So it's just a substitution almost if you're looking at it in a more jazzical sense of way. And then you've got an A over E, and then it goes to the E7, introducing that seventh, the
A7.
the dominant 7A. So generally, right, if we're looking at a minor progression and you have a dominant fifth going back, then you'll play harmonic minor over it to fit in that seventh. Do you agree with that?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fair. Give you that.
Yeah, thank you.
Talking about chords though, chord changes and that. What do you think's going on here? See if the jazz man can understand this. Last
I
bar.
didn't analyse
Sorry,
that.
first bar of the last page.
Look, I'll let you tell me
First bar of the
the
last line on the first page.
We need
Alright.
a number system.
So what he's doing
You tell us.
is he's doing a thing which is similar to tritone substitution.
Oh,
But tritone substitution is a bit shorter and skips a step.
yeah,
So this is the Neapolitan chord. Do you know what that is?
I've heard of them.
So
Yes, I
Neapolitan
do, but
chord,
you can explain.
basically, Neapolitan chord is like, it can work for the minor or major, which is cool. I mean, tritone substitution can as well, but it doesn't quite work if it's not major.
Bloody
It sort of
tritone
doesn't resolve
subs.
perfectly.
Yeah.
And that's why we keep the fifth in there.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you know, with a tritone sub, a really simplistic way of looking at it is just saying you go from the target chord. Let's call that the tonic, or 1 in this case, as it is, and then you just go up a semitone, and you got that flat 2,
Yep.
which just sort of resolves down. But this one, you go flat 2 major. You
Ooh.
then move to, and because we're in a minor key, you then move to the minor 5, which then resolves to the minor 1.
Very interesting. What's
Yeah.
it sound like? Pretty cool.
It does sound cool.
That's cool. Have
Maybe
you
I'll
ever-
timestamp it. But I'm not going to play it because we don't want to get copy striked.
Isn't it out of?
Maybe it is. I've got to look it up. I mean, I know the music's not and stuff, but maybe the recording.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know.
We could have just recorded you playing it.
We could have. I've got a recording somewhere.
All right, we're going to put that in there. I'm going to cut it up, and it's just going to be put in there. Yeah, I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
And I felt that was when we actually returned to D minor again.
Well, it's the
'Cause
start of a.
I sort of,
ending.
I felt like as soon as we get into that common, oh no, even before then, we've got that little intro, which I sort of felt was only 1, 2, 3 bars. 4 bars. The first 4 bars I sort of felt was the intro. After that is when I sort of felt like we were moving into the A Phrygian dominant.
Yeah. Okay. Look, I see them 1, 2, 3, 4.
I know what you mean.
Them first 7 bars of the intro, when you start getting that constant crotchet bass, that's when I see
Yeah.
the start, the end
Yeah.
of the intro.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's fair. I would sort of see that as like a lead in to this next section. I wouldn't see that as the intro. I sort of felt like that repeat point was the intro.
I disagree with you. We'll fight it out later. Behind the studio. Me, you, and my cousin.
Your cousin.
Yeah. Didn't you have that
What's
at
he doing
prom?
here?
He wants to listen.
Special guest, Ryan's cousin.
No, didn't you hear that in primary school? Oh, your cousin's going to bash my cousin, or my cousin's going to bash your cousin. That never
Ah.
happened?
But I'm Greek, so
Yeah,
you want to fight my
Yuri went to a
cousins.
posh school.
Did I?
Yeah.
All right.
That's how we can afford this amazing studio on the waterfront of Darling Harbour, Sydney. Looking at what a good view of the Opera House.
Harbour Bridge,
Harbour-
Opera House, and
Yeah. We're just going to climb it later. What do you reckon? After lunch, we'll have a climb.
all right. So back to
Back
what
to
I
the
was
point.
saying. let me try and prove you wrong. And I guess we can't really prove anyone wrong, but I'm gonna go back to it.
I'm sure you
So
can.
as you know, the modes aren't very stable, right? So if you play, in this case, a D minor scale, and you play that root, it feels like it's resolved to the root, to the
Yeah.
D. If you're in A Phrygian, like we are, in my case,
In quotation marks.
and you play that A, it sort of feels like it's resolved, but not quite.
Okay.
Can you agree with that? That if in any mode that you could play what the of the mode, what the root would be,
Look, I'm gonna-
and it sounds somewhat resolved.
I'm going to leave no comment. I
But
don't
you
have an
can-
opinion on that. I'll let you
you
talk.
don't have an opinion.
I
Alright.
don't.
Well, I do, and that's my opinion. My opinion is that
I haven't thought about it in any of them ways.
yeah. Well, yeah. In that case, I'm just going to finish what I'm saying.
Okay, I'll go get a cup of tea.
Yeah, so the modes are really unstable in terms of resolution. And that's why you see that A in every single bar, because he's really trying to hammer in that that's there. Because as soon as you lose that A, like we do, you know, he does that, like as I'm talking about that first bar, last line, first page. Got it?
You could do that to a metronome
Hey.
first.
He sort of does this like arpeggio sort of thing, and he's pedal pointing that A the whole time. As soon as he stops pedal pointing the A, after that run's done, he does that Neapolitan transition and resolves to the D.
All right, I'll give you that. I agree with the pedal point of the A. Because
Yeah.
that's for how I first started to learn the sound of the modes, really. Because if you're just playing
Yeah.
a mode by itself, it's not going to sound like anything, is it?
Pretty much what I'm explaining.
There we
Well,
go.
Can we agree on that?
We'll agree on that. We're learning
That's-
something together, Mum. I hope you're learning
But
something
yeah,
as well.
without really harboring into that root of the mode, it doesn't sound like it's in the mode, and it just sounds like it's in.
I'll
minor
agree with that.
or
Well,
minor
it's got
key.
a C sharp. Yeah, a C sharp, and then we kind of it gets rid of it for a second.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying with this whole thing where he's moving out of it.
Yeah,
It's swapping between the dominant and just the regular
yeah.
Phrygian.
So it's harmonic minor
Which,
bit.
for those who don't know, just means that you don't flatten the third.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. And that's a very interesting point. Thank you, Dr. Gore. You could write your whole
My
PhD on that.
villain name,
Oh, is it? You got a super.
Dr. Gore.
Oh,
Take over the world, starting with the Sydney Opera House.
what, that one there?
That one right there.
Wow. I'm gonna miss that view. For the viewers at home, we are not in Sydney, unfortunately.
Speaking of
Sydney?
last week, which we weren't, but I just want to talk about it because I just looked at my notes here.
Yeah.
There's this little arpeggio that threw me off so hard.
Is it the D one?
It's this one here.
Oh, that's like the
The-
diminished. Is it the diminished sounding one?
Um,
Because there's one that moves up into minor thirds, if I can remember.
yes,
I had a
yes, it
quick-
is. It is the diminished one. Yeah,
I had a quick
you're
play
right.
of this piece last night. I haven't played it in about a year.
it's the last bar of the second last line of the second page. For those looking, so I was looking at this for so long, and I was like, I swear I've seen a scale like this.
He's
before.
going into a mental breakdown.
And the scale that I like sort of
Associated.
with was the
Yuri's thinking. He's thinking.
damn, it's a scale. It's such a weird scale. It's got sharp 2, sharp. Oh man, I'm gonna have to write it to find it. I've forgotten. I'm gonna cut myself in there with what its scale is.
Hear a little interlude by Yuri Gore.
But yeah, and I was looking at it for so long, and then I was like, oh wait, no, there's an arpeggio, so we've got to do that. As soon as I look at it as an arpeggio,
Yeah.
what is it? It's
not a
just
scale.
It's just a B sharp diminished.
It's because
7.
when you're like, I've played this a lot of times. I did it for my HSC 20 years ago, and I've played it like every day for 6 months back then. I get so sick of this song. It's still kind of embedded into my memory, but it's just starting to get out. And the thing I noticed with this, there's like a lot of basic guitar shapes. Have you had a play of it?
No.
Yeah, there's just
My string on my guitar's broken, remember?
yeah. We'll have to fix that. Donate to our Patreon to give Yuri another G string. We need a G string.
G string.
Oh, Yuri needs a G string. We could buy him a few with, if you donate. How much is a G string from? I don't know.
Strings by Mail. That's not a sponsor, but if you play guitar, go to Strings by Mail.
Or if you're strings by mail, sponsor us.
Oh yeah, either or.
Either or for our mums. They might buy stuff.
Stop saying that. All right, let's go on. Show me something else interesting. What have you... Oh, there was a modulation.
There was 3.
3.
3 I heard. I don't know about you.
So where's the first one then?
First one, there's 3 sections. There's 3 modulations.
Think so.
3 general ones, right? Maybe back.
Oh, yeah, back to the major. Yeah.
So
Okay,
look, if we start
with
the last bar on the second line on the first page, I'm even slower than Yuri at it.
They called segments or something? I remember in the HSC we had to discuss them that way.
Yeah, but you did that. You did the HSC 30 years ago, didn't you?
35. 2019. Whoa. Time flies when
you're having fun of podcasts. Composing, I don't know, what do you compose for? Video games. Anyway, the first... Yeah, so basically the general key changes were at the start of A, B and C. So the first one kind of resolves around a D minor. We've had a bit of a discussion about that.
No, definitely resolves a D minor.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's unstable in a
There
phrygian.
we go. It's generally D minor. Then what happens in the B, I reckon we go to the relative major of D minor, which is F major. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that.
Thank you. Something we can agree about. We don't have to fight cousins anymore.
But we should.
We should anyway. Anyway, we'll tell you about it next podcast, if there is one, if you keep listening. Finally, it goes into D major in C. Do you agree with that?
I do.
Because there's a bloody key change.
That's exactly.
You're going to need another pinch harmonic, aren't you?
So, it should be right. That's not swearing.
No one's listening. Anyway.
Yeah. Do you know what it's called when you go from D minor to D major?
Transposition.
I'm talking about a specific thing. It normally happens when you end the piece.
I've done it before. I've sung it before. Do you remember first year uni how we had to sing that song?
No.
And the last note was going from the minor third to the major third.
Well, it's called either Tears de Picardy or a Picardy third.
And can you say that 10 times fast?
Tears de Picardy. It's not actually that hard to say.
Oh, okay. I just can't speak.
Yeah. But I can make myself say it 10 times super fast by just editing this.
All right, go. Wow, that was amazing. We don't know if you're even going to do it.
No, I'm going to do it.
I bet you won't. My cousin will come over and make sure you do it. How's that?
It's all right. Yeah, so... Come on. Get off your phone.
Sorry, important call.
We can...
What was that?
If you want to answer it, we can call it.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
It wasn't an important call. Yuri would just hit me if it wasn't. What were we talking about? The key. So yeah, we go A, B, C, and then we finally go back to the minor to wrap it all up after we do this amazing chromatic run. Actually, we go back into the A section at the end. Sorry, our sheet music doesn't specify that, but we generally go back into the A to end the P. So it's an A, B, C, A.
Yep.
Do you agree with that?
I completely agree with that.
Cool, because that's how the song goes.
Because I can't really argue with that one.
No. I remember I like taking that A section out when I'm going for too long. If I got to perform, this is...
The HSC was timed.
Yeah, 30 years ago. I don't know if it's changed any time since. But if I'm doing something like this is my go-to piece generally, when I'm like, oh, I got to perform in front of a bunch of people. What's something nice?
Smart.
I'll pull this out of my repertoire and play this, and if I'm vibing off them, they're vibing off their wine and cheese platters, I'll play the whole thing, but I might cut it off. There's a few repeats. It's only 3 pages of sheet music, isn't it?
It's pretty short, yeah. For a almost 6-minute piece, there wasn't much content.
No, but it was still a nice piece.
It was still nice.
It's one of my favourites.
Speaking of content, I thought it was interesting that almost every single resolution was just a 5-1.
It's called a perfect cadence, Yuri. For those listeners out there who don't have any formal training, a perfect cadence is when we go to the 5th chord.
Is it?
To the 1st chord.
Wow.
Do you want to sing it for us, Yuri?
That's... Whew.
Do you want to sing it?
You know what it's called when you go from the 1 chord to the 5 chord, which also happens a fair bit in this.
You tell the viewers, Yuri.
Just going to make sure I'm right.
We don't
Pretty
wanna-
sure it's an imperfect cadence.
We don't want to get sued, do we?
Imperfect cadence. Let's see if I'm right. I absolutely am right. It's 10 points to me.
I'm very
Right.
proud.
So if we... I mean, we could go through and find them, but that's not very interesting.
Why don't we just make our own cadence? It's like a 1 to flat 1 cadence.
To flat 1?
Which is just...
You mean a raised 7?
Sorry, 1 to
Seeing as
flat...
we're in the minor key.
I was meant to say 1 to flat 2. What would you call that cadence? A 1 to a...
Can we discuss flat 2?
Yeah?
Can we... I hate that it's called a minor second. I don't know if that annoys anyone else.
No, it doesn't annoy me because you got the
annoys me
majors.
but the major 2 and the minor 2 are the exact same. Like in a scale, and you go to a major scale or a minor scale, it's the same distance. Major and minor third, sure. If you look at the 4th and the 5th, which are also the exact same in the major and minor scale, instead we have... we have the diminished 5th and the diminished 4th.
No.
Why is it not diminished second?
Because
but
you
no,
got...
apparently diminished second is the exact same as the 1.
Well, I can't remember because if you flatten a perfect interval, it becomes diminished, and if you raise it,
Yeah.
it becomes augmented.
Yeah.
And like if you have, you got the major intervals, major second, major third, major sixth,
No, I understand the
major
terminology.
seventh, and then to flatten it, it's a minor. So flat
But
2.
why is 2 major and minor when
I
the
don't know.
distance is a tone anyway? Doesn't matter what,
I don't know. Ask Bach.
major or minor.
I don't know who invented it. We'll have to ask Adam Neely. He knows all that stuff.
I'm going to look it up.
You're gonna look it up, and I am. We'll talk while you're looking it up.
You can talk about some of these runs.
I like the runs. They're really
Yeah.
fun to play. Technically, they're all right. They're pretty fun to play. Feels like they've got something different in a lot of them. Like one of them.
This is cool. Just looking at it here, it sounds like you're rambling. You don't know what...
No, I do. Sorry, I'm just trying to. What I was trying to say is, it feels like in a lot of them they have different techniques and different sounds almost. So if you look at this first one here,
Mm-hmm.
very first one, when I
An
first
intro.
started, it was almost an exercise on rest stroke.
Oh, yeah.
You know what rest stroke
And
is?
explain rest stroke to those who are
So if you're a
not guitar
classical
players.
virtuoso, not like me, with a rest stroke, if you look at normal finger picking, right, you go first finger, second finger. That's the general rule.
Right.
And then you repeat it. And there's 2 ways you can do that. The first one is when you pluck a string, you let your finger float around. So if you pluck with your first finger, it's kind of just going towards your palm and floating until you need it again, which generally is very soon.
Yep.
Like the next second or 2 or something like that.
Sure.
Yep. Then the second method, which is rest stroke, is when you pluck that note, but instead of having that finger floating, it rests on the next string. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It makes sense in my head because I've been doing it for the past 40 years.
So, if that was a little confusing to some people, visually, if you lie the guitar on the floor on its back, when you normally finger pick, where you're going is kind of like across the string sort of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas rest stroke is almost going into the sound hole.
Yeah.
No, it's not quite, but that's sort of the
maybe have a
the
Google
idea
if I
behind
didn't
it.
make sense, but it's generally
And why do you do rest stroke?
well. There's a bit of debate, right?
Right.
Some people say it's a softer sound, more sweeter,
Softer
a
sound.
softer and a sweeter sound. That's what I've
Right.
heard. What have you heard?
I've heard that it resonates better.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's
But I
a-
guess that's kind of, if you
more-
play it
more-
softly and it still resonates,
yeah,
it's
more
a warmer
full.
sort of.
And then I've heard from someone that you should get your rest stroke and your free stroke to sound exactly the same.
Who said that? Can we name drop?
I don't want to. I don't want to. In case I misread it.
All right. Then what was their reasoning behind making them sound the same?
I
'Cause
can't.
if they sound the same, there's no point doing
Yeah,
either
I
of
agree
them.
with that. There's no point. I can't remember exactly why, but that's what I read.
Right.
They it was confusing to me because I read this from a book.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
my guitar teacher told me you get different sounds
Yeah.
or it resonates better from you. Some people say it's faster to do rest stroke.
Faster to do rest stroke.
Some people have said that. Some people have said the opposite.
I mean, from personal use, it's definitely the
And
opposite.
I was told to try and do rest stroke for everything.
Okay.
Yep. And if it's technically impossible or if it's something you can't do, just don't do it. But I've...
Just don't play them.
No.
If you can't have
Don't
a
do rest stroke.
I don't want to hear it.
But I've heard try and use rest stroke for everything unless, it's impossible to do. It's going to take it away. But it's mainly a tone thing.
Yeah.
Rest stroke. And it bugged me when I first started doing this. I just couldn't get it. And when I did AMEB, which is Australian Music Examination Board, that's all your grades and stuff like that. You had to do scales and rest stroke or I can't say it. Do you know the Italian word for rest stroke?
I don't actually know.
I can see it in my head, but I just can't say it. Like appoggiando or appoggiando or something. Do you want to Google it for me?
Absolutely.
Thank you. We need like some music when we've got nothing to say, or just cut out the dead space. What's the name for it? But have a look if you're a classical guitarist and it's confusing you. Google it. There's
Okay. I found it.
Yep.
Rest stroke or appoggiando.
yeah, there we go. Appoggiando.
Is it? Where does it come from? Italy, is it? Appoggiando.
Rest stroke
I
comes
guess.
from English.
Yeah, but the initial,
Oh,
so we can pronounce it properly.
probably Italy. Most things come from Italy
True.
in relation to music terminology.
Most things come from China, I think.
But yeah, so that first run starts off with rest stroke. Then we get down further, and then I took that rest stroke away. But you could probably do it. But it's almost... There's a bit of chromaticism in there, and chromatic runs are something that they take a bit. Do you agree with me?
They're too bad.
Yeah.
Speaking of these chromaticrons, quick interjection. Remember last week when you were like, classical and romantic are pretty much the exact same thing,
I didn't say that.
and
Did I?
I'll get this. And I was sort of explaining that when they got to romantic, they just lost interest in finding 5-to-1 cadences to change key. Well, we've got that right here. Didn't look up the time period of this piece, but he goes for it.
Late
He goes,
1800s, I'm pretty sure.
we're in F major at this point,
Yeah.
and the way that he moves to the to D major is just this huge chromatic run.
He's just
Lands
lazy.
on the 5th, and that's it.
Yeah.
He's just in the new key.
He's Tarrega. He does what he wants.
I'm gonna look him up.
He's got an amazing beard. Look up a
he's
photo.
Spanish. Oh yeah, that didn't. I don't
Yeah. Look at a photo of Tarrega. He's got an amazing bushy beard. He also, fun fact, do you know the Nokia tune?
Oh yeah.
Yuri doesn't have the mic in his hand. I'll hold it up for him.
Yeah, I'm aware of the
Yeah.
Nokia tune.
Yeah. That was in one of his pieces.
Ah.
Yeah. So
You know what piece it was?
I I think it's like a waltz or something, grand waltz or something, grand vales or something. It's one of my favourite pieces again to play, but so it's not even the general theme of it. It's not like a theme and variation on it. It's kind of just capping off a section of the piece. You'll hear it, and I remember the first time I heard it, I was like, "That's where it's from." And I still play it every now and then at parties or something because I get such a kick out of it. You'll play it, and then you'll just hear the Nokia theme, and some people roll their eyes, and some people think it's really cool.
Do you think they know that it's from a classical piece?
No.
I didn't until a few years ago.
Oh, you...
I knew it was from a classical piece. I didn't know that it was this guy.
So, Nokia, make sure you thank Tarrega and his family, and hopefully you're paying him some money to his great-great-granddaughter. Do you have some information
I don't
there?
think it'd be great, because looking here, 1892.
Is that when
That's when one of his pieces was released.
Yeah, so around the
So that's
late 1800s.
yeah.
And Yuri, what era is that for?
1890. That's the late romantic.
Yep.
Very late,
Very
in
romantic
fact.
piece, isn't it?
It's rather romantic. He's
Yeah.
rather expressive.
Yeah, well.
I like these.
Hear the music coming off the page.
He's got the extended techniques and stuff.
He
you
does.
see in that bottom of that second page, he does this run, which is kind of cool. He's got the fingerings there, so you know which fingers to use.
Yeah, I think this is
And-
just by the
And there's whoever transcribed it or whatever.
Icelandic guitar.
And
skills, what
there's
we're
just
going
this
off.
one point where he's just sitting on like the second finger and just sliding down the neck for a bit.
Yeah, when I studied classical formally, I was told that sometimes this sheet music isn't always exactly right or the best.
Right.
And
So you don't think that he's did the slides?
I don't know. What are we talking about? Oh, yeah. I did them slides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was Romantic period. That's when
Yeah.
they started doing all that.
Yeah, and Traeger was one of, like, not one of the early pioneers, but he was like...
It definitely wasn't early.
No, but he was... Probably before then, guitar wasn't super popular. It as a instrument to say, like compared to the established instruments of a symphony orchestra. You have him, and then kind of, if you know a bit about classical guitar history, Andrei Segovia was kind of the granddaddy of guitar, who came out. Do you know much about him, Yuri?
No.
No. So he was around like I think 40s, 50s, 60s, around that. He was pretty old. I think he
Right.
died in the 80s. He was around 80 or 90. You do
In
the math.
1980.
1980. He
okay,
died
right.
around then.
Yep.
And he was kind of the first person to start establishing the classical guitar as a solo instrument that we know and love today. So you have people like Fernando Saw, Tarrega, just to name a few, who did write for the classical guitar, but it wasn't as prominent. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
wasn't too big.
Too big.
Just looking here, I mean, as we know, guitars took a while to make their current form.
Yeah.
200 years ago is sort of when they started moving towards what they're at now.
Yeah. So then what Segovia did, he commissioned composers such as Taroba. I can't remember any there. Sorry, viewers. But he commissioned composers at that time to start writing hymn pieces for the guitar.
Right.
And then
So he wasn't a composer himself,
No,
just a performer.
he was just a performer. So he would get the pieces, and he said once in his interview, "You got to really know how to write the guitar." But he was a bit more of an arsehole. He was pretty pompous. He did a lot of master classes as well in the 1950s and 60s, just because he was like the big granddaddy of guitar, and he was pretty harsh on them.
Forgetting that he's so not old.
What do you mean? Oh,
He died like 20
yeah.
years ago.
So he started that,
30.
and like you had flamenco guitarist in Spain who would support dancers. That's what they would mostly do.
Yeah.
Flamenco, rasguiado.
Yeah.
So they would be supporting dancers, and he didn't like that. He didn't.
Oh, one of those guys.
Yeah. So he kind of brought that classical guitar repertoire out. And then when all this rock music came in the 50s and 60s, he didn't like it. He was like, it should be named something else. And there was a story, and I think it was Bucca Pena. Have you ever heard of him?
Nope.
I can't pronounce names correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he got his guitar once and tapped on it, started doing some flamenco guitar playing. And Segovia was like, no, you don't tap on my guitar.
Speaking of the flamenco guitars, though.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt like a traditional Spanish guitar?
Are you talking about like a proper flamenco
Like a
one?
proper flamenco one.
No.
They are so thin. It's like paper thin. Like you feel like you can just break them with like the smallest touch. I was talking to a guy I'm not going to name just because I want to just drop his name in.
Tell me after.
But you know who it is. And
Our guitar teacher.
Yeah, and he was saying that he had a friend once who got one made specifically for him by these guys. Cost him like $20,000 or something.
And it broke?
And then he started hitting it really hard, like just with like Resguido.
Yeah.
Not even actually like hitting the guitar, just hitting the strings and just smashed it.
Oh.
Literally just crumbled in his hands. So, I mean, they do so much tapping and stuff in the Spanish music, so they must be just that precise with the amount of force that they have to not break these instruments.
Yeah, like I've never played.
Do you know the reasoning behind the super weak flimsy guitars?
No, I don't.
It's because like the thinner the wood, the more it resonates.
Okay.
So it's to make it louder because they play for the dancers and there's the tapping of the feet
And it's got to be
there's
that
people
real.
drinking.
It's almost like a harsh sound, flamenco guitar. Would you agree? To get that treble out when they're playing.
Yeah,
It's
a rough sound. Yeah,
It adds more of a percussive sound to it. I feel
definitely.
Yeah, because I was watching a documentary on a flamenco builder, and I can't
remember his name.
Her name.
Her name.
Yes.
Oh,
We like
me.
gender equality on this podcast. We might have a female guest next week. Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
We can cut it out.
We can cut it out. But yeah, they like that boxy sound almost. And when I found with my first classical guitar, I've got a $1,800 classical guitar, which is nothing compared to some of the top range ones. It's a little boxy than you imagine.
You mean physically?
No, sounding boxy.
Audibly. Okay.
I don't know if that's just me hearing it.
Can you describe boxy? What you mean? I played your guitar.
No,
you can't. Describe.
No, I don't. It's hard to describe, isn't it? It's almost a lot of mid-range, almost
Okay. Doesn't really like.
high upper mids.
Yeah,
Do you agree with me?
I agree with you with that.
It's almost a little bit like an archtop guitar. Have you ever played one of them?
Yes.
It's not super archtoppy because it's got the nylon strings. So it's a little bit sweeter.
It's a lot sweeter than an arched.
Yeah, okay, maybe that. But yeah, so imagine like an archtop guitar, but much sweeter, if that makes sense.
I mean, it makes sense to me. I've heard it, but
You've heard my
I
classic.
mean,
Have you?
Yeah,
When?
I played it. You brought it in.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh, there's more
We're
people.
getting overrun.
Yeah. How are we going for time? 38.
All right.
All right.
Well, I'd say this one's going to be a short one.
Yep.
So thanks for listening. Thanks for
Thanks,
sticking
Mum.
by for
Hopefully.
round 2.
Yeah. Give us
Possibly we'll have a guest next
round
week.
3 next week.
Comment if you want some
Yeah, give us an idea of what you want to do.
ideas.
And,
Ryan was saying that someone was contacting him with some ideas.
Yeah, I'll look at them today actually, and we might do it next week. What do you
Good.
reckon?
I like that idea.
I do too. We'll listen to you and you tell us what you want. Anyway,
All right.
we'll see you next week. Thank you.
See you later.